As we're about to come out towards each other to start the fight, Yannick gives me the way for a glove touch. So I go, yeah, sounds. Come out, put my hand out for the glove touch. But as I'm reaching out, I'm thinking, this is weird, I don't know why he wants to touch my glove here. But the next thing I remember is just Rich Mitchell standing over me.
Trying to prick trim. Charles Joyner in a solid blow. It's a big shot!
Yes, that's me. And you're probably wondering how I ended up here. Let me tell you back to the beginning. So my name's Charles Joyner. I am 15-2 in kickboxing with 8 knockouts. And I'm now 4-3-1 in MMA with 3 knockouts. And I'm fighting out of TFT MMA in Seaham, County Durham, by way of Sydney, Australia. So I first got involved with combat sports. I've told it's a bit of a cliched story. It was basically just a hype around Conor McGregor. When he knocked out Jose Aldo, it gave me that push to start training. I never had any intention of fighting or anything like that because I was a bit scared of it. But I just thought I wanted to start learning the skill, and I started off with kickboxing. And I think because my body type, having such long legs and being so long, and I played a lot of sport growing up, so I was fairly coordinated. That helped me progress quite quickly. And then one thing led to another, and I just started fighting, and then turned pro, and yeah. So I'm 6'8", and I'd say I'm mainly legs. So I've got ridiculously long legs, I think, and probably if you've seen me fight, that's my style, mainly throwing kicks. Obviously got long arms as well. My kicks and knees are such a weapon that I usually end up just fighting in that sort of style. Then obviously in MMA, people are going to try and wrestle you, so I've got to figure out ways to prevent that. There's a good fighting culture in Australia because a lot of people play sport. It's very active. So having my early fights in Australia was really good. Sort of apprenticeship before I made the move over to the UK and started fighting a bit of a higher level of opposition over here.
So was your transition to MMA, did that coincide with you moving to the UK, or when did those things happen?
Yeah, so although it was Conor McGregor that got me into the sport, it was I only started kickboxing. I didn't touch MMA until I moved to the UK. So I moved to the UK September 2021. I had 4 kickboxing fights over here. Well, they ended up being in the UK, in Italy, and then in the US in 2022. And then I went full-time MMA in 2023, and that was when I moved to TFT up here in County Durham.
How did you find that transition initially from kickboxing to MMA?
It's hard because I felt like in kickboxing, I'd go and spar anyone and I'd do really well with them. And I progressed up the ranks really quickly. I was undefeated until I ended up fighting for a high-profile world title in Italy, which I lost on a decision. Still think I won that fight. But as soon as I started MMA, you'd start rolling with people that had been doing it for a few months, and then they were just absolutely killing me. At 2023, when I started transitioning to MMA full time, preparation for my first MMA fight, the sparring rounds were just horrible. Because we do freshman rounds, and I'd have people like Justin, Mick Parkin, Louis Monarch, and they'd basically just take me down. I just could not get up. I'd be absolutely exhausted. And then I found that because I was so worried about the takedown, it really affected my striking as well. So it basically felt like starting at square one again. But it was a challenge that I knew that I wanted because I knew that MMA was the future. I knew that there wasn't too much there's a bit of a ceiling on what you can do in kickboxing, but to be the best fighter in the world, you've got to be the best MMA fighter in the world. And that was the challenge I wanted for myself. So I was willing to put myself through those humbling experiences and just start again, really. So my body type definitely feels like an advantage on the feet. And I think you see that in my fights, that people start out by trying to strike with me. And if they continue trying to strike with me, it doesn't go well for them. And if they're smart, they start trying to wrestle me. And there definitely are some advantages with the wrestling defense, with my body type as well. But I find as soon as they get to that close position, the long limbs become quite hard to deal with for myself, because I've got to shut down that space in between us and get my limbs in between us and create separation. When you see for wrestlers, often like the more compact people are more effective at this. Like you look at someone like Michael Chandler comes to mind, or Daniel Cormier, or they're just so compact and explosive that that body type's such an advantage for wrestling. But I'm learning to use it, and we're figuring out ways to to use it. I've probably got the most unique body type in MMA, so it's a tricky challenge for Fisher, but he's a smart man, and I feel like every week we're coming up with tactics and skills and strategies for me to use it to my advantage.
Could you run us through a couple of highlights of your pro career so far, a couple of finishes or just fights that you thought you really excelled in?
Well, I think my pro debut was a good one. I fought a good BJJ guy, and he had better wrestling than I expected him to have as well. Liam Dunn was his name, and I think it was 10 weeks prior, I'd been in hospital because I had a collapsed lung, so I was in hospital for a week. And I was quite surprised that, the doctor said I could just get back to full training basically when it had healed, and that I could get back to competition. So we booked a fight, and my camp was really good. It was at middleweight as well. The cut was horrible, and that's documented on YouTube as well. The cut was absolutely shocking. I looked like a skeleton. He gets to the fight, and I come out, and I'm just landing really nice kicks on him. Then he shoots for a takedown, gets me down fairly easily. Because I felt so uncomfortable in those positions, because I'd never been in a fight situation where someone could wrestle you to the ground. He got to my back instantly, body triangle locked off, had the choke locked off. It was fair to say I was close to tapping, but I just thought, I'm not giving up here. I've challenged myself. I've been in hospital 10 weeks prior. I pushed through that. I think that gave me a little bit of a mental edge as well, that I'd been through something like a collapsed lung, and was able to push through and have a training camp and make middleweight and get to the fight. So I dug deep. I stripped the grips. And I felt as soon as I stripped the grips after he'd had the choke locked up, I felt like it sort of sapped the energy out of him a little bit. Then I managed to scramble back to the feet, threw a couple of feints, and just lashed in a left body kick, which is my signature strike. And he just dropped straight away. It's probably the quickest that I've hit someone with a body shot, and they've just dropped to the ground. Yeah, the fight was over. So I think that was like a really good start to my MMA career. And then probably the next highlight would be my debut on Cage Warriors, where I fought a big Italian lad that was a little bit shorter than me. He's probably about 6'6", and he just came at me running. And I was really happy in that fight because we ended up in the clinch, but I felt like my wrestling had really improved, so I felt so much more comfortable in my wrestling that I was able to get a takedown on him, landed some ground and pounds, got back to the feet. We're still in the clinch situation, and then I could see that there was an opening for my left knee to land, and that's another one of my best weapons. And as soon as I landed that, he just crumpled to the ground, and I think that really established myself in Cage Warriors as well. So I think those are probably two of my best moments so far. I had a good performance after that in my second fight in Cage Warriors, where it was the first time I'd gone the full distance and got the win against Brandon Guest, who's now a training partner of mine, a friend of mine. And he was a really good amateur coming up, so I knew that would be a tough fight, but I felt like I was able to keep it up my range on the feet, and then I was able to defend the wrestling really well as well. And I think each fight I've shown like a big improvement in all of my skills, even in the fights that I've lost, except for one. Yeah, I think I'm showing good improvement each fight, so I think it shows that the work that we're doing here at TFT is the right sort of stuff. So yeah, so my most recent fight was on Cage Warriors again. Cage Warriors Unplugged in Manchester against Nel Ariano, who was a prospect from France, a big Frenchman. I think he's about 6'4", bit of a specimen. He was 3-0. But before that fight, looking at the fight, we were pretty confident going into it. He looked like he preferred striking in most of the fights that he'd been in. I felt like, and Fisher felt like as well, that my striking was a lot better than his. So we felt that at the start of the fight, he would try and strike with me. I'd probably hurt him a bit, then he'd try and wrestle. And because we hadn't really seen him use his wrestling too much in his other fights, we thought that he wouldn't be able to sustain that pace. And once I'd defended a few times and got to my feet a few times, that he would, he'd crumble a little bit. And the fight sort of went exactly how we expected. So first round came out, we were striking. I felt like I was really sharp with my striking. I was hurting him with most of the things I was throwing. Then he entered into the wrestling. I felt like I defended a few times. He got a couple of takedowns, but I got straight back to my feet. And it was a really high-paced first round. So Fisher was really happy after the first round. I was still really tired, but we expected his output to drop off, and his output just stayed the same the whole time. His grips felt strong, and my output dropped. So ended up losing the fight. Probably the most tired I've ever been after a fight. Went out the back, threw up everywhere. Took me about 2 hours to cool down. But I felt pretty positive afterwards, because I felt like I was showing a lot of improvements. I felt like my striking was really sharp, probably the sharpest that it's been. I felt like my wrestling defense was good, but I was just given, and Fisher said that he felt like I'd done the best I could with the skills that I currently have. So all we can do is just keep on improving. So yeah, so hopefully get back out in Cage Warriors or another decent show at least 2 more times this year.
It was arguably, this fight was one of the most controversial and one of the most talked about fights in the British MMA scene. Talk us through it. Talk us through you from the walkout to the finish. What do you remember of that night?
Yeah, so I fought Yannick in a rematch after we drew in Newcastle in November. So the rematch, there was a bit of history. We actually trained together years ago, and I would have said that we were friends years ago as well. But so when we fought for the first time, there was a lot of respect. You know, Yannick's a great fighter. He's a former world champion in 2 promotions. He's only lost to high-level people, and he's a specimen himself. He's trained for years. I think he turned pro in MMA in 2011, and I started training kickboxing in 2016. So he's been fighting for years. He had, I think, 4 times the amount of fights that I'd had. So, you know, he's a really experienced guy, and I felt like I did really well in the first fight. Arguably, I felt like I did more damage, and I felt like I'd done enough to win. The fight ended early because of an accidental eye poke from myself. So there's a bit of controversy there, ended up being a draw. So in the rematch, he felt a bit of bad blood towards me. I didn't feel any bad blood towards him, but he said in his interviews he felt bad blood because I'd intentionally eye poked him. I didn't say sorry, all these things. I did say sorry, but obviously I wasn't gonna, there's no reason for me to eye poke someone when I felt like I was winning the fight. But yes, I mean, that camp, I got back from Australia, got straight into camp. I felt like I had a really good camp, really improved in that camp. Out the back, I was warming up with Justin and Fisher, and I felt unbelievably sharp and fresh. The walkout was great. I think walking out at the O2, the Indigo at the O2 is great because you're sort of on an elevated platform, the crowd's all there below you, and you get a really good reception. Felt really relaxed in the cage. As I got in the cage, the first thing I noticed, it was a bit weird. Obviously, I knew that he felt bad blood towards me, which I just didn't really feel. So I was on my guard a little bit anyway. But as I got into the cage, the first time I fought him, I ran around the cage. He was already in there, and we fist bumped as I ran past. On the second time, I got in the cage. I ran past him, and his back was towards me. So I said, okay, fair enough. So we get announced for our fight. I always stare my opponents down, and I feel like they can never really maintain eye contact with me because I feel locked in at that point. The referee, Rich Mitchell, says, you ready, blue corner, ready, red corner. And then as we're about to come out towards each other to start the fight, Yannick gives me the way for a glove touch. So I go, yeah, sounds. Come out, put my hand out for the glove touch. But as I'm reaching out, I'm thinking, this is weird, I don't know why he wants to touch my glove here. But the next thing I remember is just Rich Mitchell standing over me. And I see Yannick celebrating there. And I just go, you know, to be fair, I just got straight up and I just like gave Yannick a hug because I didn't really know what happened. I just thought he'd caught me fair. And I'm going to Fisher like, what happened there? Did he grab my glove? And they couldn't really see from the angle, so they said, oh, I don't really know. So we go and do the medical. We're talking to Yannick out the back. And then when we get back to our change room, my, Fisher and Justin's phones were all blowing up saying, he's grabbed Charles's glove there, he's faked the glove touch. And then we go on Instagram, there's hundreds of people, there's hundreds of comments saying that's the dirtiest thing I've ever seen. You know, we get back to the hotel later on and then Twitter's just blowing up. Everyone, Ariel Helwani shares it. It makes the news in Australia and all these people saying what a dirty fight it is, blah, 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 blah. You know, my reaction to it was, I try and take full responsibility for everything that I do because I feel like I'm the only person that I can only worry about what I do as a person. So other people can do things to you or other people can, you know, there are things out of your control, but you can only control how you act. So to myself, I just took the responsibility of, you know, I knew I shouldn't have touched his glove. I knew it was weird that he wanted a glove touch, so I shouldn't have trusted him there. So no more glove touches for me, which I didn't do a glove touch in my next fight. And it's no disrespect, but just because of that experience. But yeah, the rest of the MMA world was just calling for the rematch. I called for the rematch, but it never materialised. Cage Warrior said they didn't want it. Yannick said he didn't want it. And my plan was to win this next fight that I've just had and then fight Yannick for the title in Newcastle. But obviously I lost the fight, so I feel like that fight goes away a little bit, but yeah, hopefully in the future.
How did you deal with just the attention off the back of that?
I didn't know about the glove touch. I just knew it was a 4-second finish. So I said that's going to go viral, especially because there'd been a bit of bad blood. So I was just thinking, oh, that's just so annoying because I know I'm miles better than him. I know I'm just leagues above him, and I know where my career is going. And it's just one of those things. And then when I saw the glove touch, that he'd grabbed my glove and done that, I knew it was 100% going to go viral, and it did go viral. And to be fair, I'd say 99.9% of the feedback I've got is saying, wow, you've just taken this so well. I can't believe how well you're taking this. Like, I would have been absolutely furious. And of course there was parts of me that was frustrated, but I'm also a big believer of, that everything happens for a reason, whether it, like I prayed before the fight and I said, please just, I always say, like, give me the challenges that I need to grow and become the person that I'm, the best version of myself. And I did that before this fight, and this is what happened. And it's like, I just feel like that's a gift given to me by God, just to elevate myself and, show humility and not let it affect me, and just keep on developing and keep on growing. There's no point being bitter in life. So yes, I think people should subscribe to my journey, because I don't hold anything back. When I win, I'll promote my wins, and I'll promote my wins, and I'll push my wins, and I'll celebrate myself. And when I lose and I have failures, I'll still put that out there, and I'll still, show people what's happening, because I want to show people what it truly takes for someone to sacrifice everything in the hardest sport in the world to make it to the top. And there's no guarantee that you're going to make it to the top, and there's no guarantee that you're going to have success, but I want to show people, that risk that I'm taking, and that, the person that you become through it, and the good experiences, the bad experiences, and yeah, just all those little details, and not really hold anything back. So subscribe.